Hey, it's Derek Elderman here, speaker, trainer, author of 4 published books and founder of Turbocharge Your Practice, Veterinary Business Academy and Veterinary Productivity Academy. Welcome to today's blog, and this is the second blog on improving your learning outcomes and taking less time to do so. So first of all, thank you very much for the feedback from last week. I had an amazing number of emails saying, wow, this really made sense to me. This is so applicable. And as I said, the real energy, the real love that I get out of that last training is the fact that you can share it with your kids and help them get better learning outcomes. And quite a few people emailed me back and said, wow, I'd never thought of that, and I've actually done it. So let's see what happens. So have you ever been in this situation? You've been in a car and you've been either listening to the radio, not talking on the phone because that's illegal, listening to the radio, talking to someone next to you, or just daydreaming off, and all of a sudden you say, oh my God, that was my exit 5 Ks away, 5 Ks ago. If you've been in that situation, I think all of us have. And, been hurtling down the road at 120 kilometres an hour in this 1-ton monster, and we haven't really been aware of what we've been doing, and we hurtle past our exit. So just keep that in mind as we talk a little bit through this training. The other situation I want you to think of is, if you've ever learnt something, you've learned something new, and you've been making it happen, then all of a sudden, for some reason, you wake up and think, oh my golly gosh, I did it wrong again. I learnt a better way and I've just done it the old way. I kicked myself in the backside. Have you ever felt like that? Again, I'm sure you have. And you've beat yourself up for it, really badly emotionally. And in many workplaces, the trainer or the boss or your supervisor will beat you up about that as well, and give you curry about, why didn't you do it the way you were told to? You should know better by now. And I want to explore those, why those two things happen, and why that second situation where you're beating yourself up, you need to stop that. You need to stop beating yourself up and in fact congratulate yourself. So let's talk about that. Okay, so there are 4 stages of learning. The first stage is the stage of unconscious incompetence. The next stage is the stage of conscious incompetence. The next stage is the stage of conscious competence. And the top stage, when you've got it, is the stage of unconscious competence. So let's explain those 4 stages, and I'll analogize them to a driver when you're learning to drive a car. So unconscious incompetence, you don't even know what you don't know. You don't even know what you don't know. So, maybe, so this would be the 3 to 5-year-old baby that's sitting in the back seat of the car. Doesn't even know what a car is, just know they get from A to B, and there's McDonald's when they get to B, and all those sorts of things. It's at university, for example, it'll be the 2nd or 3rd year vet student, knows nothing about running a practice, doesn't even know that someone has to run the practice, type of thing. Okay, so that's unconscious incompetence. When you get a little bit of knowledge, you become a conscious incompetent. So that's the L-plate driver. I've got this, I've got these pedals down there, I've got that mirror, that mirror, that mirror, I've got the radio. It's overwhelming. So they drive, but they have to consciously think of every solitary thing that they do to get it right. Okay, so that's the stage of conscious incompetence. So again, from a veterinary practice perspective, this is the young vet that's bought a practice and is trying to run that practice like a practice or like a business. So the conscious competent, so the conscious incompetent is starting to know what they don't know. So here you don't know what you don't know. Here you know what you don't know, or you're starting to know what you don't know. Then you've got the conscious competent, and this is what I would call the P plate driver. Whether you're on your red Ps or your green Ps, provisional licence drivers. You haven't got your black licence yet for non-Australians, so this is your provisional licence. And so you're consciously competent, so you can drive the car and you can do it quite well, and you can change the radio and you can go from that mirror to that mirror to that mirror, and your pedals are all okay and you're doing a damn fine job, but you're just not to the stage yet where you're excellent at it. And then you have the unconscious competent. That's you hurtling 3 or 4 Ks past your exit and thinking, oh, whoops, there it was. So that's the unconscious competent. So in that case, many of us will do our makeup or shave or talk on the mobile phone, which is illegal and I can't recommend that. Drink a cup of coffee, all those sorts of things, and still manage to get from A to B without having an accident in most cases. Now, many people, when they get to this stage, so here you don't know what you don't know. Here you're starting to know what you don't know. So you've been given a little bit of training. You've been given a little bit of training, and you start to move up these stages. And often in here, you will know there's a better way, but because of your old habituation, because of your old habits and your old neurological pathways, you'll occasionally default to that old pathway, and then you'll kick yourself up the behind, or you give yourself a smack across the ear and say, you stupid idiot, you shouldn't have done that, you know there's a better way. And in many cases, in many practices, and this is really, really, really unfortunate, the supervisor, whoever the supervisor is, will give you an emotional beating up as well. And that's really, really, really bad. When you're improving your learning outcomes, you are learning there is a better way. Habits, there's an old Spanish proverb that I'm trying to think of. It's something along the lines of your habits are like spider webs until they become like chains and they're too hard to be broken. So habits start off being very tenuous, and as you do more and more and more and more of them, of that same habit, they become like thick chains. So once you've done something a certain way for a long, long, long period of time, it's very hard to change old habits, and therefore it's quite natural for you to fall back into older ways of doing things. But the fact that you've recognized there's a new way and you're starting to go down that way means that you need to congratulate yourself. Now both you and your supervisor need to congratulate yourself. Hey, you saw the fact that you did it wrong. You saw the fact that you fell back into that old habit. Congratulations, because 3 months ago you wouldn't have seen that you weren't doing it the right way. Okay, now, just by the way, in case this is important to you, habits are physiological. When you do a habit for a certain period of time, the myelin sheaths around those nerves that conduct those habits become very, very, very much thicker and very much better at carrying those thoughts and behaviours and all those sorts of things. So breaking a habit is not just a matter of changing your belief system or your mindset or wanting to change something. Changing the habits, you need to actually physically decrease the size of those myelin sheaths, and you've got to reroute or reroute the new behaviour. So there are actual physical and physiological things to undoing habits. There's all sorts of books on this, and one of my favourites is a book called the brain that changes itself. So if you want to delve deeper into that, that's a really good read. So if you are making changes in your habits, and if you are seeing, and if you fall back into an old pattern and you see that happening, congratulate yourself on seeing that happening. Don't beat yourself up, because when you beat yourself up, you will actually go backwards quite a few steps. And if you're training someone else and you're training them to do things in a different way, in a better way, and they occasionally default to their old way, simply remind them of the fact that this is the better way to do it, this is the newer way to do it. Don't beat them up, because it doesn't serve you and it certainly doesn't serve them. Now, before I leave this today, there's just a little story that I'd like to tell, and this story tied this learning into my psyche very, very, very strongly, and maybe it'll help you internalize this training as well. So a client of mine who a veterinary client, when I met him, his practice was virtually, on the brink of collapse, going broke, no work-life balance, hadn't seen the kids, couldn't go to the weekend soccer games, couldn't go to, date nights with his wife, etc., etc., etc. And he called me in as a desperate last resort, which many people do. They think, they wait till desperation times to call me in, whereas they should call me in a lot earlier. It's a lot easier to turn practices around when they're not about to implode than when they get to this stage. Anyway, he called me in, and he was a really good client, because he was happy to do the things that we agreed that he should do. And within 6 months, everything had turned around for the better, and he was doing amazingly well. He wanted to give back to his family, especially his parents. He'd already given his wife a new car, and she loved that. The profits extra profits he made from the practice, and to say thank you for supporting him. And he also wanted to say thank you to his parents for supporting him and allowing him to be a vet, etc., etc. And they were in a big house, and they wanted to downsize to a smaller house that was a lot more manageable, because they were getting quite elderly at that stage. So he did a number of sneaky things, sneaky good, not sneaky bad. First of all, he sent them on a trip to Fiji, 5 days, all expenses paid, boat cruise to Fiji. And he knew what sort of house they were after, and in the background, even before they'd gone, he'd actually bought this beautiful apartment house for them that was virtually their dream house. And then while they were away, he was planning to take all the furniture and everything out of their old house and move it into the new house. And the furniture removalist companies had done the big stuff, like the tables and the chairs and the beds and everything else. But he didn't want them to touch all the personal stuff, because he wanted to do that himself. And he got his sister, he had a sister, and she wanted to be involved in this as well. So they went to one of the local garages and hired a U-Haul trailer and hooked it up behind his car and drove it to the old house, and they filled it all up, and they were about ready to move to take the stuff to the new house. And he said, "Oh, gee, we didn't check the brake lights and we didn't check the blinkers when we hooked the U-Haul trailer up. Don't want to get booked with all this stuff on the back, so we better do that now." And he said, "Sis, how about you go at the back of the car, or back of the U-Haul, and I'll put my foot on the brake lights and put the blinkers on, and you can tell me whether everything's working." So he put his foot on the brake, and she said, "Yeah, it's working. Yeah, it's working." And then he put the blinker on, the right blinker on, and she said, "Yeah, it's working. Now it's not. Now it's working. Now it's not." This is these stages here. When you can see that it's not working, that's when you've made a huge shift and gone a long way up that path from being an unconscious incompetent to being an unconscious competent. So when you see that it's not working, congratulate yourself, because you've made a major learning outcome. That's it. See you next week.